Vandy boys win opening series 2-1. Pitching was up and down, but the bats woke up, and it is not time to panic in Nashville just yet. Here we go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Today, we're going to explore the good, the bad, and the ugly from the Vandy boys opening series, like Devin Futrell's outing on Sunday. The pitching was generally up and down. The bats were great for the most part. Plus, it was ugly for Vandy basketball, and there's some potential rumors floating around, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I thank you everydayers. Speaking of that, thank you for making it happen. I'm almost to 200 subscribers. Need 8 more. We'll get to 200 before the end of the first week of baseball season. That is flying. All right. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Vandy baseball, right? Very, very good opening series. Win 2-1. FAU is actually a really good baseball team. They do a phenomenal job down there. And I was impressed with what I saw on their end. Those guys are very resilient. They have great plate discipline. They jumped on all of Vandy's mistakes, all that good stuff. We're going to talk about that here. We're going to go good, bad, ugly. We're going to start with the good. And the good is the main point here. And we were good, very good at the plate overall. There was a 3-hit effort on Saturday, which was not so good, but outside of that was all really, really good, really, really positive. Friday needed big hits late. We got them. Built a 6-run lead early. Got that. Jack Bolger takes the first pitch yard, the first pitch of the season yard. RJ Austin was great at the plate. Jonathan Vastine was phenomenal at the plate as well. I mean, I think RJ, everybody hit well throughout the lineup. I mean, the base running was outstanding this week. I mean, we were able to move guys into scoring position on Friday. We did a few good things on Saturday, but for the most part, I mean, I thought the plate discipline was good. Being able to drive the baseball, especially in that opening game where the weather was kind of iffy towards the end, but it was good. The weather was really cold on Saturday, so the bats probably weren't going as much for either team. But just had an off day there, and then yesterday's 10 they exploded for 10 hits. I mean they just destroyed the baseball, and I think everybody got a little bit of action in there, and it was really, really good. So. Again, I was excited about that. I was excited about how this team was able to kind of shake off a loss. Like you don't really know how these teams handle losses, but it was good. So Jonathan Vastine continued to be really good. It was good at the plate for Cameron Koziel. He had an RBI as well. Alan Espinal, he was great at the plate. Jaden Davis was much better. He was replaced on Friday. I think it's mostly for a base running pinch hit situation, but they were able to empty the bench. They were able to get some good at bats for a lot of people like Matt Ossenfort, Braden Holcomb, J.D. Rogers, Logan Poteet, Matthew Polt, Raymond Velasquez, and Davis Diaz. They were able to get some things going. So, I mean, it was just constant, just driving the baseball, especially on Sunday. Sunday was probably the best day for the bats. Friday was probably a little more, peaks and valleys. The 6th, 7th, 8th innings were were very very lean, but like the ninth inning was great, and the first 5 innings were phenomenal at the plate for Vanderbilt, where they just seemed to just drive the baseball here, there, and everywhere. A couple guys went yard. R.J. Austin went deep. Jonathan Vastine went deep, and Bolger went deep on the very first pitch. Sunday, it just seemed like there was a beach ball coming in there, and it was it just seemed to just pop off the bat. It just kept, the hits just kept collecting, and runs just kept pouring in a little bit as Vandy won 11-1. So a lot, like when you think about the plate approaches and early in the season where you're not quite, or teams are not quite there yet, or the timing can be off sometimes. Like Florida lost one of their games, but you just got to like be thankful that they're driving the baseball. They're putting good contact on it. Sometimes they would make good contact and it'd go right at somebody like that. That's some of the early season luck that they have. Sometimes getting behind in counts, I don't think helps either. But the plate discipline overall, I thought was good. I thought they got deep into the count on some at bats. Have had some really solid at bats there. I thought it was a good day at the dish, all series long for the most part. Now, obviously, we'll carry some of that over into the bad. And when I talk about the bad, because there were some really bad at bats, and that's just baseball. So one of the other good things I wanted to talk about was Devin Futrell. He shined, man. He was really, really good. He gave up just 3 hits in 6 innings, 1 run, didn't walk anybody, and struck out 5. He had looks like he had 5 1-2-3 innings, and he just threw a heavy baseball. He kept the FAU hitters off balance. He was brilliant, man. He showed really, really good stuff. He showed that, hey, he deserves to be the Sunday starter, and he really kind of put his foot down into that spot. So I was impressed by what he was able to do off the mound, and he had really good command of his pitches. He was overall, he was just in total control. So, to me, it is really, really strong when you like you need that just juice to win a series, right? You come off a pretty lousy game for the most part against FAU on Saturday, and you're like, we cannot lose this series. We need a good outing, and you have a guy that's like, okay, I got you, and he comes in and he's just ripping the ball in there, right? I mean, just absolutely dealing, and that's what you want. And the bullpen came through when they came in relief, and they were able to collect the win. And I was impressed that it just seemed like they needed a stress-free game to kind of get people at bats. They needed a stress-free game to say, okay, it is okay. Like, we are good. We can actually string some hits together. We can actually throw some good innings. We can actually, if our pitchers just calm down and have command up there, it's going to go well, And when you throw strikes, it's a good thing. And I know that seems pretty obvious, but like it seemed like he had a good plan. He had really good poise, really good confidence. Like, even when things were not so good, even in situations where things might get a little tricky, which we'll talk about kind of in the uglies, when we get to this part. But like, there were some errors made behind him. There were some base runners that shouldn't have been there, but he didn't walk anybody, and he only gave up 3 hits. So again, 55 strikes on 78 pitches, didn't walk anybody. He just pretty much shut FAU down, which is what you want, because when you have a pitcher that's dealing like that, your hitters can relax and just drive the ball. Like, there's no pressure, right? Because it doesn't matter what we do, Devin's going to get, or it was Devin in this situation, but like whoever's pitching, they just know, hey, we're going to, we can go out there, we can just do whatever at the plate. Boom, 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 boom. They have a relaxed approach. We can be more picky. We can be more selective at the plate because we know Devin's going to, he's dealing right now. They're not going to score. And lo and behold, the bats just explode on Sunday, right? When the pitching is shaky, that's when the pressure's on. It's like, and I think early on Friday, they were relaxed. Bolger drives one out of the park, and that just kind of gave them some juice there for a little while. And then, and then what happened is what happened. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the things that you should be slightly concerned about that are easily fixable, but there are some concerns with this team, and we're going to discuss them here next. All right, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. That's right. LinkedIn, when you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. So LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, what makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy that, in fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make this process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, welcome back. Segment number 2 here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen. Thank you for making us your everyday listen. If you are one of those everydayers, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You are growing this channel in a way that no one ever thought possible for Vandy Sports Channel. But here we are, and we're about to embark on something cool. So pass the word, spread the word, and let's get this thing going. So talking a little bit of baseball, make Locked On SEC your next listen. If you want to check out some other action around the conference in the world of basketball and baseball and even football still, check in on Locked On SEC. So, all right. Well, we talked about the good. The bats I thought were good. All right. Devin Futrell was brilliant on the mound. Like I thought those were a few of the positives that you can take away from this opening series. But some of the concerns that I have, which when I say concerns, I mean like they can fix these things and time can even fix these things. But nonetheless, like coming off the first series, like these are potential problems that could either get better or can snowball and become a lot worse if you don't fix them. So one of my main concerns is really the pitching, right? The starting pitching, the consistency of the bullpen, all of that stuff, like just the overall consistency of the pitching, I think was a concern that I have coming out of this weekend, because when you looked at how the pitching shook out, I think outside of Devin Futrell, just his entire outing was brilliant. I thought this pitching staff had really, really great moments and really, really poor moments, right? And a lot of it, I think, was just command and not having that command and getting in situations where it gets a little tight. And what tends to happen when you do that in the world of pitching is every time you get tight, every time things are going, you're like, oh, good, you leave the baseball up. And when you leave the baseball up, the other team, it doesn't matter who it is. I could be sitting at the plate. If you leave a pitch up, if I got you timed up, I'm going to groove it and I'm going to drive it, either out of the park or somewhere in the gap. And we're going to score some runs. And, to get these situations, yeah, it was bad this weekend, but I'm actually glad that these situations happened because they have to get themselves out of these situations. They have to learn, okay, I've got to have better command out here. I've got to just dial it down a notch, and I've got to go out here and just groove this baseball, right? Because, like I said, it's a whole mindset. And when you press it, like you're pressing, you're going to miss things. Everything you miss is high. Think of a quarterback. When a quarterback is getting pressure, where does he miss most of the time? High, right? And because he's just trying to get it out, and that thing, he just leaves it up and it sails. Next thing you know, the guy picks it off. Same in baseball. You leave the ball up. You're either too far up in the zone and you're walking people, or you elevate a pitch that you want it down and away and it goes up and over the plate. That thing gets taken yard. That's why. Because it's a command thing, right? And honestly, college pitchers probably, major league pitchers should have that command every single time they go out on the field. Every time they take the mound, like major leaguers should have that command. But pitching is a really, really difficult thing. And this is why this is not in the ugly category, because pitching is a very fickle thing. I've done it, not at the college level, obviously, but I have been a pitcher most of my life, all through high school, and I understand just when you don't have it, man, you just don't have it. And that's going to happen from time to time. It happens in the major leagues from time to time, especially with bullpen guys. It's just some days you just have the command and some days you don't. Some days weather plays a factor. Some days it doesn't. Just your overall energy level sometimes will, like for Grayson Carter coming out in that first inning, the very first inning was ugly. Why was it ugly? He was amped up. He was trying to throw at 150 miles an hour when really throw it like 93, 94 and have good command on it, and you're good, right? Dial it down and pitch to a spot. Like get in that muscle memory. I know that's easier said than done, but it just shows that like when, Vandy was very unfortunate that FAU was good at pouncing on those mistakes. Some teams just can't. Sometimes you can get away with it, and teams aren't going to jump all over those mistakes and drive it. But FAU did, and that's where it became bad because they let themselves in bad situations. Also, a side note, Carter Holton is not a bullpen guy. I know why he's a bullpen guy right now. He's not going to be a bullpen guy. I thought at times he looked very brilliant. I didn't see if he pitched on Saturday or Sunday, but he looked very brilliant in his outing on Friday. And he just had that one inning where he had those 5 runs. And, again, I think it's just he just lost command of it. But like when he was the outs he was making, it was like either feast or famine with him, right? And that's kind of a starter. I think that's kind of a starter problem. Like, it takes starters like sometimes a little bit to get in a groove. But like when he missed bad. But when he was on, he was on. There was like really no in between. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, is it fixable? Yeah, it's very fixable. I think it's not a problem even. It's a concern that I think these pitchers, it's a mindset thing. It's a Tim Corbin. Okay, I got with these next matchups, this next like weekday series or weekday game and the next weekend series. Like I've got to figure out who I can trot out there first, right? And that's what these opening series are for. They're for seeing what guys can do what. Now, the hope is like you could do that in a 14-3 game and not a 5-4. You need to get it's 4-4 bases loaded and you got to bring a guy in and see how he responds. Like that's not a great thing to do in the opening series. But again, you get yourself in these situations now. Like I think this was a good learning experience for Tim Corbin, which is why it's a good thing to have these bad things in such an I don't want to say losses are not important, but like this was not like Saturday was not an expensive loss. And it shows that, like, hey, you've got to overcome the weather conditions. You've got to find command from the mound. And then the bats were also bad on Saturday. Like, the bats just literally disappeared. They got off to a good start. They were up 2-1 at one point. They scored 4 runs, but they scored it on 3 hits. Like, you get guys up there and they're just it just looks like they had no plan at the plate. Looks like the pitchers really had no plan on. They were just up there throwing sometimes. That's what it looks like. That's what I mean by not command. It just looks like they're throwing. They're not trying to hit spots. It appears. But nonetheless, Sunday, everything was good. Friday, hit or miss. There were some good things. There were some bad things. But overall, I think that's just kind of the nature of pitching, especially the first weekend of the series, or especially first weekend of the season. So, again, it's a concern, but like on the level of like 1 to 10 concern, like maybe a 4, maybe a 5. You just got to find the right guys to put in the right spots, and I think you can. I think you can do that. So there were some good things with the pitching staff. There were some good moments, some good at bats for some of these pitchers. They just got to put it all together, and that takes time, and it takes the right mix of guys, and you got to figure out who your weekend guys are. And Bryce Cunningham wasn't bad, but again, it's just the inconsistency, and and it's just that FAU pounced on every single mistake. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the ugly. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about all the ugly from the weekend. Basketball, baseball. We're going to talk about the ugly. So stay tuned. All right. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. Take a shot on your first bet with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can get buckets with that first bet on FanDuel. So because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. So bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right. Welcome back. Last and final segment, the ugly. Now we're talking about the ugly from the weekend, right? The ugly. We're going to finish up with baseball. We're going to get the ugly. Not very many uglies this weekend, just lots of bad that led to a loss on Saturday and an almost loss on Friday. But the ugly, of course, is mostly the fact that the bats just completely disappeared. And again, I think that's mindset at the plate. I think that's a little bit of pressing, but to have a 3-hit effort against FAU when you are looking to Omaha is always going to be an ugly. Can it be fixed? Yeah, no doubt. Another ugly. Actually, I meant to say it good. I'm gonna end the show on a good. So I'm gonna remind myself, end the show on a good note. I'll end the show on a good note. All right. Also, the ugly is some of the fielding errors. There were some errors. Okay, and the one that really describes some of the ugliness from this weekend was the dreaded triangle of doom. Kind of like a standoff, like I got it. No, you got it. And the ball drops right in between 3 guys. All 3 of them could have made the easy catch. But like the second baseman thought the right fielder was going to get it. The right fielder thought the center fielder was going to get it. And the center fielder thought, it was one of those like, I thought you had it. No, I thought you had it. Oh, crap. And the ball just drops right in the middle of them. Like, technically that's not an error. Like officially in the scorebook, it's not an error. But it's an error. And then there was one that was, there were some booted balls there and some really bad walks, which I guess you could consider that errors. But like, just some things that happened in the field that, again, like these uglies, like I'm having to stretch to find some uglies because these are all like fixable things. Like this is all like something that it just reps, man. just communication. Like one person just say, I got it. The person, like the center fielder, should just call off both of them and say, I got it, and go make the catch. Like that's what should have happened. And that's probably what will happen the next time in that scenario if it's those three guys. So again, I'm not overly concerned with the uglies. Probably more concerned with the consistency of the pitching and finding the right mix of bullpen guys. But as far as the uglies go, not uglies. The true ugly of the weekend goes to basketball. Now, I say that very vaguely because the women's game, they lost. Both teams lost to Tennessee this week. Vandy at home shot 32% from the field. It was brutal. All right. And the men's team, to say they weren't even, I don't think they were in the game on the bus ride. Like, I think they got blown out. I think they were already down 30-0 on the bus. Like, it was one of those type games where they were just avalanched, overwhelmed, all of that stuff from the jump. I mean, it was bad. And they were in a hostile environment. It was the biggest loss to Tennessee in the history of this matchup. And it was over from the tip, man. And this quote says it all from Jerry Stackhouse. We're not on the level of Tennessee right now. It's great that we had a game at home in our building where we could compete against them, but right now I think it's clicking as well as anybody in the country. Vanderbilt was 33% from the field, 28% from three-point range. They turned it over 19 times. They gave up 28 assists, just easy shots all over the place. I mean, they looked overwhelmed everywhere. And you can read the stat book, right? I'm not going to read all of it. But you lose by 35 points. There's some grumblings. Now, there's been grumblings kind of all year, but like there's some grumblings going on, and it's involving the future of Jerry Stackhouse. And it seemed like he was checked out. It seemed like he knows the inevitable is coming. This is just a team that it just went from bad to worse. And it just didn't seem like they ever had any answers. It seems like things are they're just not improving. And you have to address these things. But the rumor is that a new coach will be addressing these things next year. The rumor is that there's some lists already being put out that it's like a hot board. So I'll get straight to it. The rumor is Jerry Stackhouse is gone. Let's just get straight to it. I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger because that's all I got. It's just a rumor. It's just a rumor that he's gone. And is it warranted? I think change is needed. If you want my opinion, I just think change is needed. Jerry Stackhouse was a lot of fun to watch at North Carolina. A lot of fun to watch in the NBA as a player. He's a great basketball mind. It's just not a good fit here. College basketball is not a good fit for Jerry Stackhouse. It's just not, right? It's just a different mentality. And it just is. He knows it. I guarantee if you ask him, he'd probably tell you. He'd probably admit it. He'd be better off in the NBA. Like, he needs to go get on an NBA bench. He needs to go learn and then get his shot at being a head coach in the NBA. Like, I think that's where he belongs. I think that's where his mindset is. I think he's one of those guys, like the NBA game, like, you know how like college football and NFL are like two totally different games? That is even bigger in basketball. Like college basketball and the NBA, it's almost like they're two separate sports altogether. Like football is the same sport, but it's just different. Basketball might even just be a different sport altogether with the NBA versus college basketball. The way you have to do things, the way you have to manage egos, the way you coach those guys, you don't really coach those guys. You just tell them, hey, this is the situation, be prepared for it, go do your thing. Like, here you go. You get too big of a head. You know, it's kind of a players run league, and college basketball does not work that way. Like, you have to teach these guys how to play basketball. it teaches you how to play together as a team. It's very evident. So anyway, those are the rumors. Change needs to happen. It just does. Now, I said I would leave the show on a good note, and I will. The base running, going back to the Vandy boys, the base running was absolutely outstanding. Hewitt had I'm so excited I can't even spit it out. Geez Louise. I'm like, Calvin Hewitt stole home. Well, he stole second, then he stole home. Calvin Hewitt's base running has been great. So is Jonathan Vastine. Both their base running has been great for this team. So that was a really good positive also from this weekend. Was the base running put us in really good situations to win walk-off style Friday, and also to help spark a big rally on Sunday. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Let's have a great week. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Anchor down.